Back on Hittin Hard with Jon Chuckery on Locked On Sports Atlanta, reminding you head over to youtube.com. Put us in your search browser there. Subscribe to our page. Leave us a comment. Also, we are free and available on all of your favorite podcast platforms. You can use Spotify, Odyssey. Download us today. Leave us a 5-star review. And follow me on my personal Twitter page. That would be at JMCH316. Well, as we just kind of sit here and wait, right, for the DeJounte Murray potential trade to happen. And, we saw yesterday that Gallinari, they were asking him to maybe do this Matt Ryan thing, right? Remember when Matt was owed a roster bonus and they asked him to push back the deadline on all that? The Hawks supposedly have asked Danilo Gallinari to push back his roster bonus or roster, whatever deal so that they don't have to pay him all the money. Basically, they would rather have San Antonio pay the $5 million buyout and be done with all of it rather than they have to pick up the tab for all of that, right? But here's the thing, too. We can talk about DeJounte Murray. We can talk about the rookies that they drafted just now. We can talk about the guys that are second year. We saw this morning already, Sharif Cooper's got a 2-way contract. Basically, that'll make him a restricted free agent. So if the Hawks are going to give up on Sharif Cooper, then they're going to get something back for him, right? But here's the reality. And I don't want to completely put all of this on him, but if Travis and Landry Fields are going to go out and get the Murrays and these guys, and we're going to have drafts and things like that, it's time for Nate McMillan to also figure out how to use these guys, right? Now, we know Nate in an old school way, and you can like that, not like that, but it is the reality of the situation, isn't as enamored with playing some of his young guys. Now, part of that may be that some of these guys are not ready to play. But what's the old saying? How do you know if you're ready if you never get a chance, to play out there? But you have 4 draft picks in the last 2 years, right? With the 2 guys they drafted this year, with Martin and Griffin this year, and you got Johnson and you got Cooper from last year, that you have this log jam of, okay, if we move on from Gallinari and we make one more move here and we got to add a guy here, what do I do with those guys? And then you talk about the idea of, okay, we have this dynamic backcourt. Nate said in one of his pressers that, hey, maybe we look for another ball handling guard to not just take the pressure off of Trae Young, but also allow him to work a lot more off ball, right? That may be part of his role next year is playing off ball, not just always bring the ball up and be so dominant with it. Okay. Then if all of that's going to come to fruition, then you got to tell me that Nate McMillan gets back to this flurry of coaching that we saw in the second half of a couple of years ago, right? The year that they made the Eastern Conference run a couple seasons ago, where they couldn't do anything wrong in the second half of the NBA season after Lloyd Pierce just kind of fledged along and guys were not as excited and enamored about Lloyd Pierce. They couldn't do anything wrong in the second half under Nate. But we didn't see that. And there are times when you wonder about, and again, this is, because we watch it so closely, I'm sure every coach in the league gets these questions about rotations and minutes and lack of using young guys or this or that or offensive sets and scheme and blah, blah, blah. I get all that. Or why, again, my big thing with Nate last year was every time I'd see some guy like Trae or Collins or Capella go up and say, well, we didn't have the effort and, we didn't have that want to, and we didn't have the motivation or blah, blah, blah. And then Nate would get up there and like, yeah, we're just not putting up effort and motivation and blah, blah, blah. Okay. Well, coach, that's on you. If you can't motivate and inspire, and by the way, the one thing as Sam Mitchell taught me in the NBA is you control minutes. That's the one thing you can do as a coach. You may not be able to do a lot of things in the NBA, but you can control minutes. If you got guys telling me that you don't have effort and things like that, pull their ass off the court. Pull them off. So, again, all the excuse making from last year. So, if we're going to add these pieces and we're going to get Murray, and who knows, maybe they'll add another piece. Maybe they will go after Ayton or whatever. Maybe they will go after Gobert. I don't know, whatever. If you're going to bring these guys in, I got to know that Nate McMillan is going to be the guy that we fell in love with a couple of seasons ago. Because I will tell you, last year, I understand they dealt with COVID. They dealt with a lot of injuries. And look, guys have to stay healthy this year. Guys do have to perform better this year, more consistently, right? Collins has to be more consistent. Capella has to be more consistent. Bogey has to be more consistent, right? Herter has to be more consistent. We all understand that. But Nate's got to coach these guys better too. And at some point, you've got 4 draft picks in the last 2 years that we're like scratching our head and saying, okay, are we trying to make our G League team as good as it can possibly be? Or are we going to find roles for some of these guys? Because the idea of continuing to go out there and find veterans for money just isn't realistic. If you start talking about you bring Murray in and you got to extend him in a couple of years and you got to pay him maximum. At some point, much like the Warriors and the Celtics, you have to draft guys that fill a role, right? We talked about the Marcus Williams, the Grant Williams. We talked about Kevin Looney and Poole. You've got to find those guys first round, second round that come in and fill a role and can do it cheap, right? We talk about this in the NFL all the time. At some point, you have to have cheap, productive labor. You have to have guys that outplay their contract when they're getting started. If they blow up and they become superstars, then you can figure out if I want to pay them or if I'm going to sign and trade and move on from them, right? I got too many guys I have to give max contracts to. When has any team ever said that in the history of the league, right? But my point is that you've got to develop these guys, and we have to see more out of young players. We have to see more out of the veterans consistently, and a lot of this is going to fall on Nate. I don't want to go into another season where after every game it's, well, we didn't have the effort and we didn't have this and we weren't ready. And okay, coach, that's on you. You can't tell me effort, motivation, weren't ready, or any of those things and not start controlling some minutes. And if that means you get wiped around the floor by whatever, Orlando on a Tuesday night to send a message, 1 game in 82 games, then send a message. Whatever. Do something that inspires me, right? Now, I want to tell you about my friends over at Sakara. Listen, I know everybody's trying to get on some kind of wellness program. Summer's here. You want the beach body, this, that, and the other, right? I know a lot of you folks, too, by the way, are getting out of the meat business, right? So a lot of you folks are trying to get away from being meat-based and things that you do out there. Sakara is a great way to kind of change this. You get nutrient-dense meals, snacks, and supplements that nourish your body without sacrificing taste or quality, right? It's a wellness company anchored in food as medicine on a mission to nourish your body through the power of plants, right? The nutritional design, breakfasts, lunch, dinners, they're made with plant-rich ingredients. So it helps you boost your energy, support digestion, curb your sugar cravings, get your skin glowing. Plus, it's delivered right to your door, ready to eat. And if you go right now, we're offering a deal for our podcast listeners. Sakara is offering listeners 20% off their first order when they go to sakara.com/lockedon. Or you can enter the code LOCKEDON20. So that's LOCKEDON20. Put sakara.com/lockedon20 or enter LOCKEDON20 in the code at checkout, and you'll get 20% off your first order. That's Sakara, sakara.com/lockedon20 to get 20% off your first order. Sakara.com/lockedon20. So this is going to be an important season, no doubt, for the Atlanta Hawks to figure some things out, get back on track. And more than just the roster itself, more than just revamping and changing and this and the other, you got to tell me my coach is going to take advantage of the young guys that I have, coach guys up better, put these guys in a position to succeed, and whatever you got to do to motivate, inspire, lead, whatever like that. I need the Nate McMillan that we saw in the second half of the NBA season a couple of years ago that propelled this team into that big playoff run. Not the Nate McMillan that every time there's a game over and they blow it, it's, well, motivation, we're not ready, we weren't this, we didn't do this. Okay. Because those excuses aren't going to fly. Travis Schlenk and Landry Fields are going to change this roster enough, and they're going to go out and make a big splashy move. If they do nothing else but add DeJounte Murray, that alone has changed up your roster quite a bit, right? You've added a really good defensive player. You didn't have to give anything up of real merit, and you've got another guy to complement Nate or Trey's scoring out there. So this is more than just changing the roster. This is Nate McMillan has got to get these guys ready and get these guys motivated to play. All right, when we come back, has Matt Olson found his power stroke? Man, let's hope. We've been waiting all year for it. It's Hitting Hard with Jon Chuckery on Locked On Sports Atlanta.